Farah is doing some amazing things. So for those who don't know, Farah also started Pakistani Women in Computing, which started with brainchild of 2-3 got together, and then eventually now it's a global phenomena. And there are so many amazing developers, programmers, and women who are part of that network. And Farah spearheads that. Farah is also Open Seattle charter member as well. And thank you so much, Farah, for making time for us today. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ali Sheikh, and I'm sorry, Ali, I think I was fasting and it's getting to me.
It's all good.
So, all good. Thank you.
All right. Hey, how's everyone going? So my name's Ali. I'll try making this quick because I know we have other events coming up after this. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about, well, first let me introduce Reciprocal Ventures. We're a VC firm. We invest predominantly in Web3 technologies. We also invest in fintech. We invest across the stack, so anything from infrastructure to Web3 to even gaming and NFTs. And so those are like core focus areas for us. I think it's like, for us, it's just such an interesting and unique opportunity that, we're not going to see something like this probably in our lifetimes again, like some of this game-changing technology that's been created and some of the use cases that it opens up. So specifically with Web3, so before I get into Web3 gaming, it helps to really think about from like first principles why Web3 is important, right? So let me talk about two distinct things, right? The first one is permissionless and the second one is decentralization. So the best way to really talk about this, I'll give you guys a story, and it's kind of, it's sad, but it's also funny. But I was out with dinner at my friend's. We went to an Iranian restaurant, and I used Venmo to like pay my friend, and I said, "Oh, Iranian food." And Venmo blocked my account, right? 3 months, no indication of why. I tried reaching out, customer support, like, nope, you're under, like, we have to check this out. We have to make sure everything's good. And, that's just an example of the power of these platforms that have like, we're just okay with them controlling our lives and like making these decisions. Even though I'm in California and I have a US passport and I've done nothing shady, they just saw one word and they're like, nope, we're putting you on a list and we're blocking your access to Venmo. So like when we talk about the power of like permissionless and decentralized systems, like this is what it's meant to solve. And so that's like when you think about why Web3 is important, why like building these technologies are important, is really like making it fair for like people across the globe to have access to these networks or access to these economies, which traditionally they haven't been, right? Especially coming from Pakistan. Think about how much it takes to send money from here to Pakistan. You have to go to MoneyGram, you have to give them your passport or your ID, you have to pay exorbitant fees. Whereas with like Web3 technology, as all you need is a wallet address and you can transfer as much as you want to like the person that needs it, right? So I just want you to keep that in mind when we talk about like Web3 and why it's so important in like this day and age. So like now moving on to like, Web3 gaming, right? One thing to remember is like it's very new, right? We haven't hit like escape velocity right now. And so yes, there are a lot of scams, there are a lot of like, ups and downs. There's a lot of like crashes that happen, but at the same time, like people forget that like some of the games, they took like 10, 15 years to develop, even the industry itself. And so I would say like it's still very early, but it's like very exciting to be in like Web3 gaming at this point because there's like so few competitors, and also if you have like a hit game, it tends to rise up very, very quickly. And we saw this with a game like Axie Infinity early on, which was like a brainchild of like the Philippines, right? There was like a huge use case of like people actually playing to earn or even making like wages off Axie Infinity. We had stories of people quitting their jobs to exclusively focus on like working in Axie Infinity and making like money off that. And even the currency that was used in Axie Infinity at some point was like stronger than the Philippines pesos, right? So something like that was like really like fascinating, and obviously like that's turned around right now, but like it just gives you an idea of how powerful this like technology can be if you execute it correctly. So let me talk about some of the factors that make like Web3 super interesting for gaming. The first one is like virtual goods ownership, right? If you play like League of Legends or you play Fortnite, in the end of the day, if they decide to kick you off their platform, for whatever reason, they can, and you can't do anything about it. Whereas with Web3, once you own your asset, only you have access to it. Unless you grant permission to someone, unless you like sell it to someone, like you are in charge of how it's being used. And if you want to trade it, you can trade it. If you want to keep it, you can keep it. If you want to use it as your PFP on Twitter, you can do that. But other than that, like you are in charge of that. And I think that's a really cool concept because, again, whenever you play some of these other games that are out there, like in the end of the day, they own that content. It belongs to them. And if they want to take it away, they can. The second one that was actually briefly mentioned in the previous talk that we just heard is this like concept of like cross-game interoperability, right? If you can build a game on the blockchain and it becomes like hugely successful, a lot of times what happens is you can partner with other games and either bring characters from other games, lands from other games, companies from other games, and like really combine them together in your own world. And a really good example of this is Yuga Labs. So Yuga, obviously the founders of Bored Apes, I'm sure many of you have heard of, they've created their own metaverse. And what they did is once they opened up that metaverse, they partnered with some of the top projects that were not Yuga projects on Ethereum, like Azuki, Moonbirds, like a few of the other ones. And now you can actually access all of those like NFTs within their metaverse. And so that's just like such a kind of unique concept where it's like, imagine playing Fortnite and you have access to it in like Street Fighter, right? Like there's some crazy things that you can do when it comes to like building this like interoperability layer with other games that traditionally gaming studios do not have. So I think that's like another area that's like really fascinating that's like yet to be explored. Another one, a lot of times like people talk about like why the blockchain is important, and one of the key factors of a blockchain is that it's provable. It's like provable, right? So you can go into a blockchain and from day one, you can see all of the transactions that have taken place. So when it comes to like proving scarcity within a game, right? Like let's say you have like a gold sword. A lot of times in today's games, like you can create 5 of them and sell them and say, oh, there's only one of one asset, and no one will know, right? It's like hard to prove it unless you go find every single gamer and ask them, hey, do you have a gold sword? Whereas on the blockchain, all of that data is published, and anyone in the world, like you, me, like anyone who has access to like a computer can access it and read the blockchain and see like what has been issued. And so this is another kind of powerful thing about the blockchain is that in the end of the day, it's just pure math. So if you follow math and if you like believe in math, then like it's like provable that certain actions or transactions have taken place. Another kind of interesting category within Web3 is like these decentralized gaming platforms. And I think this is probably the most contentious issue because right now when you create a game, really you can either go to two beasts, right? There's either Apple or there's Google, and they will take their cut, right? Like Apple, Google have their own like 30% charges for selling any in-game asset. Whereas with a blockchain world, you can create like a gaming platform that charges 0 fees to developers, right? Like why should developers who've put blood, sweat, and tears into building a game have to just like give up 30% off the bat? And it's just, and we've accepted that, right? Like you have to, like, it's just like, oh, like I have to actually factor that in. Every gaming model I've seen has seen this like 30% cut that like Apple or Google takes. So with a decentralized like gaming platform, you can self-publish your games and you can actually like decide that, no, I don't want to pay any platform fees, and that's perfectly fine. So this is something that like Solana is actually working on right now. They're coming up with their Solana mobile stack. And one of the key features is that they're going to have their own decentralized app stores where people can publish their own games. They have to get like audited that they're not like scams or anything by the Solana team, but they will be charging 0 fees. Like that's actually a crazy concept. And again, you're going up against Android and Apple, which is like a very like hefty goal. But if they're able to like really get that traction and then that becomes the status quo, we might actually see Apple and Google come down on those gaming fees that they charge today. So that's like a longer term goal and like one of the more interesting aspects of like what the blockchain and Web3 can bring to the ecosystem. But like it's like something that like, you know, it like breaks your thinking of like, we've just come to accept like people, whether it's charging these ridiculous platform fees, whether it's like even asking permission to be listed, even though like you've gone through like A, B, and C, it might be where you're coming from, where you're based, right? Like a lot of that gets like abstracted away when you have like a blockchain. and it becomes very easy to like deploy your games in a decentralized manner and not having to pay like these exorbitant platform fees that exist today. And yeah, I will say like one of the last things that like, can really come from the blockchain is like building these like metaverse plays that we've heard about, some people have like talked about, some people have like engaged with, and I think that's like just another interesting category that a lot of people are focusing on right now. Like we saw Facebook change its name to Meta. That gave life to the whole concept of like a metaverse and where we're going with this. And obviously you've seen the rise of like, AI with ChatGPT-3, ChatGPT-4. Like these things are gonna like start really making these new metaverses that we kind of start currently, like we can't even like imagine what they'll become in the next few years. It's just like the genesis of like a really big moment that I think we as a firm are very excited about. We've invested in a few gaming companies, we've invested in a few metaverse companies, and for us, it's really about finding like founders who are thinking from first principles and really breaking what is traditionally accepted and have like a different worldview of like what should go on in like these gaming studios and what we should be okay with like giving up and we should be okay with like some of the rules that like have been set predetermined without even us having any input. So I think that's where it's something that's exciting for us. I think it's still early, right? There's still a lot of issues that occur today, but this is like, for us, it's like a 5 to 7 year time horizon. So we're very excited about what the future brings for like Web3 gaming. So yeah. Yeah. I mean, so for us, we look at the same metrics that we look at for traditional gaming, right? MAU, DAU, retention, what are in-app, what are purchases like, what are transactions like. The cool thing is like, again, like a lot of this data you actually don't even need to ask for. You can just look at the game smart contract and like bring it.
From an investment perspective, how do you evaluate between tokens versus equity? And really where does value?
Yeah, so most of the deals that we do are equity deals with token warrants. So you have like a mix of both. So in case that the equity becomes more valuable, that's usually what you end up getting. But if it's like the token is the most valuable thing, then that's what it converts to.
Have you guys done any hyper-casual deals?
So one of the games we did was like Photo Finish. It's like a horse racing game. So you breed your own horse. The more popular your horse is, the faster it becomes, and then you can actually start playing and racing against other people and wagering on who wins.
So I guess, sorry, last question. On that, casual games, just by genre, the idea is people come in, play, and then dive in. Mm-hmm. From an in-game economic perspective, that there is no sustainability. So when you add the Web3 layer, how are you thinking about that, A, from a token's perspective, being long-term?
Yeah. So one of the things is like, you don't have to have a token, right? Like that's, you can choose to have one, but the more interesting thing is like if you are to have like an in-game asset. So like for these hyper casual games, like let's say you play a game and you reach a very high level and then you're like, okay, I'm done with this game. You can actually sell that to someone else who can start off from there rather than starting from scratch. Actually, that, like two other things that actually are really interesting about Web3 gaming is like, let's say Michael Jordan played a casual game, right? And he's done with it. Now he's like, okay, I'm done. And he wants to sell his asset. You can buy Michael Jordan's NFT, right? And it's provable, again, through like math and like the blockchain. And now you have this asset and this history of like who's held it for like since the Genesis block. And that's like another cool concept of just like, imagine like being able to trace like NFTs that you hold, like held by other people that you might be celebrities, might be someone you look up to, might like things like that. So even for casual games, there's like use cases. It's just like you have to think like kind of outside the box of like what brings that to the like what makes it like interesting for the gamers to continue to play, or even what makes it interesting for new gamers to come in and play. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ali, one of the challenges with blockchain gaming specifically, from a developer's perspective, is it presents a massive amount of risk. And the risk primarily comes from most of the games that you build. Either you build games that are disposable, hyper-casual as an example, or you build games that have inherent longevity. And blockchain typically ties into games that have inherent longevity.
Yeah.
Because you have to build utility in the asset.
Yeah.
this is an oxymoron in of itself. Because on the mobile, when we're trying to build a game on the mobile, we're trying to build for a very short-term experience. Now, if you ask any seasoned developer out there, remove blockchain for a minute, give them a challenge. Hey, build me a game that your community will play for 2 years. Forget blockchain. It's almost impossible to do. It's one of the hardest things that a mobile or any gaming developer can do, is to create a game that has that level of engagement. The problem is blockchain kind of slides in as the next layer inside that to provide longevity of the assets. And most of the games, Axie included, failed at that. So Axie is now gone to dust because the game itself did not have longevity. Meanwhile, Pokemon, a Genesis game in the same category, is something that has lasted generations, right? Because it was built for the love of the game. So I feel the risk with blockchain is that it's a shiny thing. It's trending, it's happening, it's niche, and so everybody gets into the hype bandwagon. You make money from it as quickly as you can, which is totally fine. But I believe for most game developers, the application of blockchain into their business presents a massive amount of risk, and I find it's very difficult for people to take that on. I don't know if you've seen that on your end. It's what we've seen a lot on our end. And if you have any thoughts on that.
So like one of the things I said is like, it is early, right? But like part of why venture is interesting is that you take these bets, right? And you take these risks because they have outsized returns, right? And so you could say the same thing when internet came out, right? Like I was reading this article on Twitter, this thread of like, when internet came out, people were calling it the biggest scam in the world. Like, oh, like look at all these businesses. Like we had the .com boom, for God's sake, right? But out of that .com boom, we have the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, right? Like these of the world. And so, yes, like again, like it is early. Axie was, like people say it's a scam, but like, when it started, it was just like, such a groundbreaking idea. And like some of the things that it showed us was like, hey, like, again, like it wasn't like it didn't sustain, but like the fact that it was able to capture this like mind share of people across the globe through like a game that was actually operated on the blockchain that had a lot of upside for people. Like people retired off Axie, by the way, before it crashed, right? So, even for that, like that in itself is like a pretty powerful story that I think people ignore. People like focusing a lot on the negatives, but I think there are like a lot of positives that you can think of. But I think you're right. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, especially maybe in the hyper casual space. Like, maybe it's not as like insightful. But I think there are, if you can think of like a creative way to like really engage a community or like build like ownership within like your own game, then there's nothing like that, right? Like, part of what's cool about the blockchain is like you have your players, which they become owners in the game. You have your creators where you can reward them with whether it's NFTs, whether it's tokens, whatever it is, within transactions, right? Like it's not just like a developer's game. It's like this whole ecosystem of people like helping each other build this like forward, right? And I think that's something I probably forgot to mention, but the creator economy in blockchains is something that's like super unique, right? Like I can come in as a creator, I can build land, and we've seen the success of Roblox and Minecraft. This is like the whole concept of like blockchain is like, as a creator, if I create a world and people play in it, I can get paid for that. Where traditionally that's not, you can't do that in today's games. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it becomes interesting, because like it's very risky, but it is like high return, high reward, right? Kind of thing. So yeah, that's how we think about it.
For the Web3 games, it has generally been very detrimental. I think the narrative, like especially with games like Axie Infinity, a lot of people came in for the wrong reasons. And generally the game sustainability was kind of like a Ponzi model of new players coming in and then people retiring and that. And basically, I think the journey moving the conversation away from playing to earn and focusing on the decentralization and the other creator economies kind of stuff that you're talking about. I think, like I said, a 5 to 7 years window of kind of this bubble burst, and initially a lot of people were taking advantage of all of the hype around it. But I think the majority, and then you like you said, thinking from the first principles angle, what is this really helpful for? With a lot of stuff that we were talking about, the technology wasn't really there in terms of what they were imagining was possible versus what was actually ground reality of where the Web3 technologies will. But I think with all of that coming along, I think 5 to 7 years is probably a very good window of how to think about the kind of things you can do in the space. I think short-term plays of trying to connect it with hyper-casual or casual, my feeling is that's not the right play at this point. If you have to do something in that space, it has to be in the 3 to 4 year window of and then,
I think on that, a few things that we've seen, we've been, I've worked at Greta, we're the largest in what we've done in the phrase. When we make content investments, we're fundamentally investing in games or SMBC, Web3 as distribution models, and then obviously Web3 as an added monetization layer. We've done Sheikh, which if you look at the trailer, they do mention blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.
The general idea is to build a very strong game, and then for individuals who want to own their in-game assets, they can, but without really impacting the in-game experience. Those are things that I'm excited about, because more distribution, as monetization. It's an exciting space. We're seeing a lot of that with Uncaged is another good example.
No, and that's part of it. Is like right now, like learning blockchains, like gaming on blockchain shouldn't be like, oh, I need to learn how to create a wallet, download a seed phrase, things like that. It should be abstracted as much as possible that you don't even know there's a blockchain on the back of it. And so
on the infrastructure side of things, it's even more exciting with that Web3, which is effectively helping studios move from Web2 to Web3. And then we recently invested in Telescope Labs, which is game economist as a service. So there's a lot of opportunity in that realm, which is effectively helping both the developers, users scale towards Web3 or what the future Web3 looks like.
That's awesome. That's right.
Many of the games that are actually deploying Web3, they're making Web2 design. And Web2, the entire game is built around a Web2 mindset. But Web3 is sexy, so you just added it. So to that point, if we were to build a Web3 game, it's a question for you. Would you guys invest in one of our companies here? If we said, hey, we have the latest, greatest Web3 blockchain, running a Solana play with, we did a horse racing game that takes on Zedrun and is better, faster, it's on the mobile, it's happening. Would you guys invest in that kind of thing?
I mean, if you can show the metrics behind it, sure. It's
hyper casual horses racing. This is your money.
I think it's. It's an interesting topic. So if anyone wants to chat about it.
What about the uncertainty around Apple and Google not having a stance? Like they'll accept a few applications and then on other instances just will not have.
Well, let me put that back on you. Is that okay for them to do? Right? So
saying you come up with the right concept, it's working in Web 2.0, and then you go on Google and Apple, and then they just say, sorry, for whatever reason you can't accept it because we don't believe in cryptocurrency or.
So for those so right now the way that most people get around it is having a web app or like a console, right?
It's just kind of going to HTML5.
But like I said, with Solana launching its mobile stack, that's already compatible with Android. So anything from Android can be ported over right directly to SMS, and that'll have its own app store. So and again, that's a very lofty goal as well. They're taking on Google and Amazon or Apple, right? It's not something that's going to happen in a 6-month time frame, but they're starting the things, and I think part of the hope of SMS is that other blockchains will realize we can have our own mobile stack and start building their own stuff, right? So I think that's really planting your flag is more important than what comes really after. So
because the developer tools are kind of down. Working with the wallet that they MetaMask.
Oh yeah.
They partnered up with MetaMask, so that's also an option now. So the developer tools are slowly accepting.
Any insights on that, particularly because if a main player does that, I think that does a lot.
Yeah. So part of it is you kind of only have one chance, and if you mess it up, then you lose your community, right? So companies like Steam, which started kind of by themselves, right, and really weren't thinking of this from day one, for them, they have their community, it's working, they have their creators, it's exactly. But if you start seeing a few new use cases, like some companies that are like Nike, for example, is they bought Artifact NFT, and if that turns out to be a hugely successful project, we'll probably see other companies like Amazon's getting ready to launch their own NFT marketplace, right? Like slowly by slowly, Starbucks has its own NFTs now. So like slowly by slowly, like you're seeing like a lot of these companies like engaging in it, but there hasn't been like a big, huge success. Once we see that huge success is probably when we'll see like more of these companies like try transitioning over.
Right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you so much, Ali. The way we had designed today's sessions, we divided them into two parts. So the one session that you had today, right now, was more about how to learn the trends that are going on and some of the innovation that is happening in this space. I know we all are hungry, so once we go for our dinner, the sessions that we have planned over there are a little bit different. Because what you will enjoy over there is we have brought in some, just like Ali, there is an investment banker from Barclays who will talk about where investments are flowing in the gaming industry, just to give you an idea where dollar and cents are. And then we have another open charter member who will talk about how to scale. If you build a company in the US, how to raise funds for your company, how to scale. He's already had 2 exits. One exit was close to about $350 million. The second exit was for $600 million. He's on his third company, which we already see is going to become a unicorn. So he's going to come and talk a little bit about his principles and how he has been doing business in the US as well. So with that, I would like to say thank you so much. We'll conclude today's session. We have about 20 minutes. We can network, meet people. We have Sajid here, who's Director of Innovation at Nike. So you were talking about Nike, right? So what a coincidence. We have Ibrahim from Griffin Ventures. Griffin Gaming Partners here. So thank you so much, Ibrahim, for being here. We have somebody else from Recore. No, I don't see them. All right. So, but please help yourself. We have coffee, we have water, and then at around 5 o'clock, we'll just exit and head to our next destination. Thank you.